Yo. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Round the 412 Fantasy Football Show. I feel like instead of yo, I should have started with ho, ho, ho.
Ratio
OO. I guess I'm joined. I think that's Drew at the bottom. How the Grinch ratioed Christmas. I'm also joined with Joe Frick, which you can see the get up if you're watching on YouTube right now. Unbelievable. Shout out to both you guys. I know why you're wearing what you're wearing. You guys look like idiots, and I love it.
The drip
I
don't
look
stop.
like an idiot for you. You and Tyler, I look like an idiot for everything you guys have done for all these families.
2 days left, by the way, if you're wondering what Drew's alluding to get involved with Rocking Around the 412. We are at about $9,200 as it stands right now. Like I said, 2 more days to try to get us to that $10,000 goal, which would be great to hit. But to be quite honest with you, our original goal was 5,000. We reached that, moved it to 7,500, hit that. So we've already moved the goalposts a little bit more than Steelers Twitter. So for us to even be where we're at right now, we're very happy about it. Ryan's already coming in talking about Sony Michel. This is not going to make Drew happy.
Oh, no.
We're going to turn him into the actual Grinch. Sony Michel make the hate list.
I'm never telling him anything ever again.
Is Sony Michel on the hate list? What do you think?
He's on my dead to me list. He's up there with Tyler Lockett, who's also dead to me after this week.
I was going to say, I was waiting for the Tyler Lockett reference on the show after getting the Snapchats. He's zooming in on his stat line like 3 different times.
Yeah, so obviously I've talked shit on that man all year. Great player, but awful in fantasy. I played him in every week, every league, in do or die week, right before the playoffs, and he absolutely smoked me. He ratioed the crap out of me.
But here's the thing: you knew it was going to happen. You said it yourself.
Did I say it after the podcast last week, or did I say it during?
I think you said it 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, like you knew it was coming up.
Yeah,
and
because he had a decent game 2 weeks ago, and then last week he really balled out.
Yeah,
because you said it was the Monday night game. You're like, it's prime time.
Yeah, that's right.
He's gonna have a big game.
Yeah, fun stuff. All right. What's not fun is let's talk about some injury. Well, first off, should we address, I guess, just what's been happening with COVID running rampant all of a sudden in the NFL over the last 48 hours? I mean, this is going to seriously impact.
Yeah. I mean,
true, but I was trying to keep it to fantasy football, but Joe is right. It is happening everywhere. But directly related to this, I mean, you got to be prepared at all times, even more so right now with COVID playing as big of a factor as it is.
You have to handcuff your players more than normal. Like a lot of people got screwed last night who thought that they were going to have Tyler Higbee, and then he tested positive yesterday, didn't have him. It might have been a false positive, but even then you didn't have him. I don't even know the guy that filled in for him.
Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, I mean, they have the other tight end just got put on the COVID list today, Bryson Hopkins.
Who was the other guy though that was?
They were running 4 wide receiver sets. There was a dude I'd never even heard of.
Yeah,
and he had 1 target, and then he got the defensive holding in the end zone that set up a touchdown.
There was another guy though who had 3 catches. Did I know who it was? It was a tight end, I thought.
I don't know, but yeah, that's definitely a good point about the handcuffing. Players that you typically wouldn't have to. Let's talk about some injuries specifically though, because the COVID stuff's going to keep happening. You kind of just have to monitor that on your own. But
real quick though, with one more thing with the COVID. So Alexander Madison just went onto the COVID list. So if you're a Dalvin Cook owner, you should definitely have what's their backup's name? It's really hard to say his name. Igbenon.
No. Right. Yeah, he's a rookie.
Kene and Waganu.
Yeah. So
the kick returner that returned but they also just picked up Wayne Gallman, right?
Yeah. I mean, they've been giving him touches though, even with Cook on the field. They've been trying to manufacture touches for him. So if you're a Cook owner, I would absolutely handcuff him right now because you won't have Madison. Because if something were to happen to Cook, whether he's probably not a close contact, they would have said that by now. But if
you're talking about Kendall Blanton, tight end for the Rams.
Yeah, he was the one that was getting targets last night. But if say Cook didn't get picked up on his meter as a close contact, but he actually gets sick from Madison, obviously they've been around each other. You got to make sure that you got to have that backup, especially it's playoffs now. You can't play around anymore.
Derek said, "What the hell is going on here?" Yeah, it's like pretty much Santa walked into the workshop and nobody was working. That's essentially what Derek just walked into.
It's true.
All right, so let's talk about some injuries though. Lamar Jackson, I feel like really one of the big ones here. Carted off with an ankle injury. So obviously when that happens, everybody's thinking the worst, although apparently he avoided that dreaded high ankle sprain. Now, how effective is he going to be? Obviously, Drew, I'm going to defer to you on this. What do we think that we see from Lamar Jackson? Is he going to play Sunday? If so, how effective can he be?
Yeah, so he has a low ankle sprain. You mentioned it wasn't high.
So what does that mean? What does that mean for someone that is not smart?
So it's literally just high and low. So you have your high ankle like up here. He's down here and more of the base. So obviously,
can you stick your foot up in the air like Aaron Rodgers and show us exactly where?
Behind my head, if you want me to.
What the?
Jesus Christ! I'm out of here.
I thought we had this discussion.
I think we got to come back to this comment.
I got to take off the jacket. This is too much for me.
I make you sweaty.
I'll go full tomato. I don't even care.
So here's the thing. So he has a low ankle sprain. We're not sure yet if he's going to play. But even if he does, he's obviously going to be hindered. Most of his fantasy points are coming with his legs, so he's not going to be full Lamar Jackson out there. Plus, he has a bad matchup this week. They play Green Bay, who's been dominating players.
That's wrong. Of late. That's factually incorrect.
Did it change? I mean, obviously Stafford.
Green Bay is the second best matchup for QBs right now.
Since when did that happen?
Last week.
But isn't Jair Alexander coming back?
Jair Alexander's already back.
So they got worse when Alexander came back.
Yes. And they actually are the best matchup for receivers, and they are the second best matchup for Green Bay. I'm going to tell you what I did. Lamar Jackson is my QB1 for this week.
Wait, so honestly, though, like 2 weeks ago, we were just talking about how they dominated quarterbacks for like 4 straight weeks.
Yeah, that's gone. The Justin Fields just had his best game. Matt Stafford threw all over him, and Kirk Cousins was a top 5 quarterback the week they played him.
All right, well,
okay. Jair Alexander hasn't returned to practice yet.
I thought he played this past week.
They designated him to return, but he hasn't practiced yet.
Well, they better get him back because they've been.
Yeah. All right. So that makes more sense. Because I was just saying, what in the world kind of timeline are we in where Green Bay gets worse adding Jair Alexander?
They were good for a while. I must be sleeping.
Nah, I can pull up and figure out.
You were too busy stealing gifts from Whoville.
Yikes.
To notice. Yeah, but hey, listen, that's why Joe's charts are the best. It's recent trends, not trends for the whole season. Because Green Bay probably still doesn't look too bad season long, right?
Oh yeah, I can only do one at a time. But
how did Fields do on Sunday night? Like he was just average.
It was his best game of the year. I think he had like 70 rushing yards. He had like 220, a couple touchdowns.
I think passing wise though, like I think a lot of that was Yak, which I'm not saying that changes the fact that they gave up that many points, but I don't know like if it was so much Justin Fields.
Justin Fields had 20.36.
Yeah. But with his legs, of course, like that's completely different.
But I mean, Lamar Jackson, all legs.
Not right now, though. He's all leg.
Sometimes that's all you need.
Hey, don't act like he's not about to take a cortisone shot right before kickoff. Go out there and be the exact. Remember when we were so worried about Taysom Hill with his plantar fasciitis?
Yeah. I mean,
all right. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, we're not shying away from Lamar all that much. He is in our top 10. Joe mentioned where he's got him. So, another injury to talk about, though, Kareem Hunt looks like he's going to go on. Did they say that he's going on IR already again? Or
they haven't put him on IR. I don't think that they said that, but
okay.
I mean, I would think that he is going to be IR. I think he would get placed on IR. I could see him missing at least 3 games, but sometimes teams don't place someone on IR if they don't need the roster spot. And with all the guys that they have on the COVID list, they probably don't need the roster spot right now. They're getting absolutely decimated.
Yeah. I mean, we just talked about what's happened over the last 48 hours. They've been hit as hard as anybody. 8 players put on the COVID list today.
Yeah. Jarvis Landry just got added a few hours ago, which I didn't.
Jarvis Landry, Wyatt Teller's another huge one. Austin Hooper was added to the list as well. Tack McKinley. So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely some impact players for them that are going to be likely missing Saturday's game. Because they play on Saturday, by the way, not Sunday.
Yeah, and they have a good matchup this week, right? I'm just confirming.
They got the Raiders.
Yeah. So they have a great matchup. I think Nick Chubb is going to absolutely feast this week with Hunt out. I wouldn't be shocked if Dearness Johnson gets some run as well.
Yeah,
He definitely will. He definitely
Yeah.
will. I mean, you see it as soon as they run two running backs, regardless of who it is. What's interesting though is when Hunt goes out, like he's usually the pass catcher, and like Chubb is okay, Johnson's okay. They'll sprinkle Felton in a little bit, but I mean, to me, that elevates the floor for Chubb because they'll at least have to use him a little bit. But yeah, Stefanski very much a two running back guy. Like it's not like Chubb's going to get like 90% of the carries or anything like that. They'll run the same exact offense either way.
They don't want Baker to throw it. They don't want him to throw it.
I mean, he can't. The dude's like broken in half. Yeah. Like it's not going to happen. But yeah, the Green Bay, the Minnesota game was like the turning point. So it was like they were good against KC, Seattle with like I think it was the first game Russ came back, and then Minnesota was good. The Rams were good last week. They were like 2 weeks ago. They were like middle of the pack. Last week they were middle of the pack. But yeah, they've been getting cooked.
Is that a product of those teams knowing them because they're divisional opponents, and then Rams are just Cooper Kupp's just freaking disgusting?
I mean, a lot of what Green Bay was doing to be successful was just running like a too high. And then they were getting a lot of like good play from like their line and then like their interior linebackers. I don't know if they've had very many injuries outside of that that's caused a change to that. But I think to Smitty's point, a lot of people get burned in the too high because you try to squeeze in a deep ball that you have no business throwing. You got to just take what they give you, get the underneath and like try to make plays and get the yards after the catch. What it seems like more teams are willing to do that on them than before. So it's like, yes, like the Rams have like a lot of good passing options, but they're not like a big yak team. Or they are a big yak team. They're not going for the bombs, especially with Woods out. I mean, you saw the same thing.
Van Jefferson's been getting a few bombs each game now. He hit
but especially with the way it's like Stafford's kind of banged up too, so like they haven't been as much. But I think that's a consistent team. Like Minnesota doesn't really have like a burner type. Like Justin Jefferson, it's like more of like crossing routes, stuff like that. And hey, he's just a great route runner. So I think it's just their injuries are starting to pile up. But I mean, I don't feel like extremely confident in it. To me, it's like I would rather have a team that's been bad all year, that's consistently bad, be the matchup. But I mean, you got to roll with the trends too. I mean, otherwise you'd be missing stuff like the Steelers, like run defense, like they're still pretty awful. So it's like,
I had to say it.
Are you sure that they're bad? Are you sure?
Yeah, they're the worst actually.
Over 200 yards rushing 2 times in the last month.
150 at half. Real quick before we move on though, Lamar, he's been struggling himself though too. So it's like the last few weeks, I mean, the Steelers obviously did what they did to him. The week before that, they had the Browns.
Recently. Yeah, they played the Browns twice.
Yeah. So Lamar's been struggling as of late, ever since that Miami game. So I guess you could say that Green Bay's been bad, but like I'm not sold on the fact that maybe they've just had a bad couple of games and plus Lamar's injured. It's going to depend on whether your other options are if you're playing him. I know you have him at QB1, but I don't think I had him in my top 5. I don't even think I ranked him this week, more so because I didn't think he was going to play. But
yeah,
he came in at number 9 collectively. I think I had him at 7 somewhere.
I think that was probably because I had him so high because Drew definitely didn't have him on there.
Yeah, I felt like he wasn't going to play, but it's also so early. They haven't really told us much. It was more so I felt like his injury didn't look as bad as it was at the time. Like I didn't. Like when he went down, I wasn't like, oh, he hurt his Achilles or something. It was kind of like he looked like he just got twisted up a little bit.
He got rolled up on for sure.
Yeah, but it wasn't as like to me, it didn't look as bad as I thought it came out to be in terms of him going on a cart and stuff. I was kind of surprised by that, but I mean, obviously, I don't know how he's feeling. But
yeah, I feel like that's just a precaution.
Yeah,
I mean, okay, I actually really didn't even know much about this injury at all, so I'm glad that we can bring it up. Austin Eckler, what's going on with him?
Yeah, so they haven't told us much, but he has an ankle injury, and he missed most of the second half. Justin Jackson and Larry Roundtree were splitting carries, I believe. I don't think that there's any clear handcuff in this backfield that you're going to want to start, but if you're an Austin Eckler owner, you got to look to see if maybe you might not have him this week.
Yeah, well, I think that's an interesting point. Like now, most leagues are either in playoffs or it's like the week before playoffs. how do you construct your lineup now that you're in playoff mode? Like, do you guys keep the same team you've been running with all year? Like, I know for me, like, if I have someone like that I don't feel comfortable and I would never play, I drop them. And it's like I pick up extra defense. I'll pick up like a handcuff that probably won't see, because it's like having someone say like Cortland Sutton on your bench. If you're playing Cortland Sutton in the playoffs this week and he's a wide receiver 2 for you, you're probably going to lose.
Yep.
So it's like I would rather, like, especially with all this COVID stuff going on, like I would say, like, all right, like get your lineup, maybe 1 or 2 other guys. It's like, okay, I'm not playing them because of matchup, or I know that I'm going to need them. But if they're just going to be bench guys for you, I would probably lean towards like the more high upside. There is like some interesting things you can look at as far as like tiebreakers. Like I know like sometimes it's like, oh, like bench points can be the tiebreaker, like if you end up in a deadlock tie, but in fractional scoring, it's so rare that it's like, to me, like that risk is worth it. But
more now than ever, you have to go with the insurance, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was say I think like the last 2 years have probably changed the strategy for a lot of people with how they'll, carry their bench going into the playoffs. But yeah, good points. Good thing to bring up right beforehand. I know, Drew, you just kind of said you're not sure which one of those 2 guys, if there were a clear handcuff. Joe, do you think that there is between Larry Roundtree and Justin Jackson? Like, which one would you rather own, if not Austin Eckler? Or if you are an Eckler owner?
I am an Eckler owner in a couple of leagues. I'm sure this is shocking considering I'm in 12. But yeah, I think that Justin Jackson gets like the first crack at things. Roundtree like will definitely get some tread. I think it would be more of like a 60-40 split unless someone gets the hot hand. But when he has missed time in the past, Jackson has kind of stepped in and taken on like that lead back role, even though you can't expect Justin Jackson to get the same utilization that Eckler is, but in a pinch, like he is someone that can be usable depending on matchup. Like, so for example, this week, the Chargers have Kansas City, and Kansas City across the board has been a lot better on defense as of late, but their one weak spot is the running back position. So it's like that might be a way, like if Eckler doesn't play, I think that he will because it's such an important game for them because it's a big division game, but
short week though.
What about
true.
What about who is getting the carries in the red zone? Because I feel like that's going to be
and that's a good point. I mean, that's going to be your most
because if you're going to start one of these guys, you need a touchdown. You absolutely need a touchdown, especially with the way Justin Herbert's running that offense right now. You might not get enough production otherwise. They got to score.
Let me see. So, actually, last week, it wasn't Roundtree. It was Josh Kelly that got the rest of the – yeah, so it was Josh Kelly. And they split 28 – it was like 28% to 27%. They both had 5 targets. I mean, it was pretty much a split down the middle, pretty much on all accounts. It seems like Josh Kelly got a little bit more of a bump in terms of like rushing percentage. But if they're seeing the same target percentage, Kelly got a little bit more touch percentage. Like, to me, it's a lot more muddy than I think. I
don't know why I forgot about Josh Kelly.
Yeah. Let me look. Who does it? I think it's Pro Football Reference that does the red zone touches.
Real quick, I think we just also got a question. Miles Sanders, Ramondre Stevenson.
Death. God, man.
Sanders has that ankle injury yet. He might not play.
Well, if that's the case, this isn't much of a question.
Well, New England has a much better matchup on the ground. So Indianapolis has been pretty porous on the run, especially in PPR. They're giving up 26 points per game. So on the whole, that's the 10th worst rushing defense there. Yeah. Washington, if you look at their aggregated rankings throughout the year, a lot of their struggles in the early season tend to dominate like how they're viewed like on different platforms, but their defense has been fantastic outside of the Dallas game last week where they just got obliterated on all fronts. Like Washington has been super solid.
Yeah, so a bunch of their edge rushers and defensive players were on the COVID list last week. So that you could probably throw that one out as an outlier, but you have to see if they're coming back. I don't know.
Well, also
if they're,
Jonathan Allen up the middle just got added today.
Yep.
So, even if they get Montez Sweat back on the edge off the COVID list, Jonathan Allen just went on.
Yeah.
Right.
Another thing with this decision is you can't wait up until the end on Sunday to make it, right? Because the Pats play Saturday night against Indianapolis. So I think I'm with Stevenson.
I mean, they have to be activated by Saturday at 4. So what time's that game? If it's around that time, you might have a good sense of whether or not those guys
they're the Saturday night, like 8:30. There's games at 4:30 and 8:30.
You should have a sense if those guys are going to be back for Sunday.
Yeah, true. Joe, were you looking at something?
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up the Justin Jackson.
Oh, they're right.
I think it's not PFF, it's Pro Football Reference. They do like their advanced.
Better not be PFF.
Yeah, we don't talk about them.
I ain't paying for that. Are you kidding me? Get out of here.
Unless we're doing the Collinsworth slide in.
Snap counts.
We need a clip of Joey Molinaro doing the Chris Collinsworth impression right there.
The one that he did for the Grinch the other day was actually hilarious.
Well, he's looking that up. We can just quickly handle Terry McLaurin since this is going to be pretty easy.
Well, Terry McLaurin, obviously concussion. Is he going to pass concussion protocol? That's the only thing really to discuss here.
His look bad. He came up from the top ropes and smacked his head. So
it's an interesting way to put it.
Well, he went up for a ball and the corner kind of like went up under him and took his legs out.
Yeah. Well, you know what? We don't have DeAndre Hopkins on here, but Cliff Kingsbury said he suffered a leg injury. I actually thought he suffered a head injury in the back of the end zone when Kyler threw up one at the end of the game. Like his head kind of smacked back and then he was holding the back of his head.
It looked like a setback to me to his hamstring injury, to be honest, the way he walked off.
Yeah.
But that got added pretty late because they were on the West Coast, so I actually missed that part. I knew he walked off at the end. Also, James Conner walked off at the end. What looked like an ankle injury, but they haven't reported anything with him as well.
He was down the field after the last play.
Yeah.
Were we have one more player on here. Were we purposely waiting till after we found out this information from Joe? Josh Allen.
I mean, we can hang on. Yeah, I heard that he has a midfoot sprain, but I also heard he has turf toe. He was in a walking boot, which it was more of a precautionary thing, just like similar to what Dak Prescott was in when he had his calf injury.
Yeah.
He's day to day, but I feel like Josh Allen's kind of the guy that you're going to expect he's going to push himself through, kind of like a Roethlisberger thing. That's the only way I'm going to compare Roethlisberger to him. I know a lot of people like to do that. But the big thing for me is that he's been running the ball a lot lately, and his fantasy numbers have been up because of that. If he has a significant injury down there, maybe he has like a turf toe injury similar to what Aaron Rodgers is dealing with, he's not going to run the ball as much. So that could hinder his fantasy production going forward.
Yeah, the ceiling for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. We see them run like 7 to 10 designed quarterback runs a game.
I'm pretty sure that their running backs didn't have a carry till like the third quarter, like something crazy on Sunday.
And they just keep Joe. On that point, and then they just keep inactivating Zach Moss, and it was like,
oh yeah,
it's madness. But it doesn't look like a lot of them have had a lot of carries. I mean, Justin Jackson's only had 1 carry inside the 5, 4 carries inside the 10, 11 inside the 20. Roundtree, similar, 7 inside the 20, 4 inside the 10, 2 inside the 1, or inside the 5. He has 1 touchdown. Kelly's 2, 1, and 0. But I don't think he's been with the team that long. I don't think he's been with the team that long, though, has he? No, yeah, you guys.
Kelly was last year.
Yeah, that's right. So I don't think Kelly is the move. If the lineup construction stays the way that it is, I would imagine that if Eckler's out, that Roundtree probably would get a hat. So then it's just like, I have no idea. I would probably avoid the backfield, honestly.
Honestly, they're probably just a DFS dart throw play and hope that you get the guy that scores the touchdown.
What do you know about DFS?
Nothing.
Yeah, you don't want to talk about that on here?
Do you want me to discuss it?
Yeah.
Because I can discuss it.
Actually, no. Wait, don't, because we'll talk about the end when I pull up Joe's chart.
Okay.
All right, so let's talk about Drew, you literally wrote on here in the topics, just screw Urban Meyer. I think that anybody out there that also owns James Robinson in any league probably agrees with that sentiment.
Yeah. Urban Meyer is a jackass. First of all, he was freaking walking around the sideline with his headset off like he doesn't give a damn. The dude has a great
He's
player.
checked out.
He's done. He knows he's out of there. He don't give a crap. 6 carries for 4 yards for James Robinson in a great matchup. He has great matchups going forward. Everybody was super hyped to have him in the playoffs. Like, what do? Do you drop him at this point? Because he's just wasting a spot? Like, they've been talking about it for weeks. You want to get him involved. He doesn't do it. He's full of shit. So what are you going to do? Can't start him?
Yeah. I mean, the game script wasn't favorable for him, but he also didn't have a target in the passing game. But to think that they only handed the ball off 7 times, like, in total for the game is just, like, really interesting. I mean, if you want to get into the numbers, he did have 85% of the carries, which I guess is cool. I don't think that, like, I could say drop him just because it's like he's a starting running back.
If you need insurance,
he has the matchup, but I don't see like how he could be somebody that like I feel comfortable putting in my lineup. He could have himself a great game. I mean, he could very much be like kind of reminds me of the early in the season before like Myles Gaskin kind of settled into his role in Miami, where it was just like, yeah, like you have the matchup, but like, is he going to do anything with it? Like, I don't know. And for me, it's like I want more consistent players in a playoff lineup. You might have like 1 or 2 guys that you take chances with. So it's like if you do need to put in Robinson, I think you have to be very cognizant about the rest of the lineup construction that you have.
Real quick before we move on to, he just mentioned it. The Dolphins backfield. I'm pretty sure their entire backfield is on the COVID list. And I think Salvon Ahmed was the first one placed. So I like him if he ends up being the only guy they have coming in Sunday.
You think that because he would be the first one off in theory?
Yeah, so he's going to be – you think that he's going to be your bell cow back if the rest of them aren't off.
Yeah, and I mean the Jets are terrible.
Yes.
So I don't – like if we're thinking about before like a scenario where you're between like Miles Sanders, Ramondre Stevenson, and like Ahmed is like the only option that you have, like I would probably feel better with that too.
He's probably on your free agent list. He's probably not rostered.
And I don't think that you would need to burn a waiver on him to get him. But I would play him assuming that he's the only back that they had over Robinson as well.
He's actually going in my DFS lineup this week. Actually, I've already decided that Dolphin running back's going in there.
I like that.
Drew, what do you have to say about the Cowboys offense?
So they're not as good as I thought coming into this season. I wanted to address that. I had Dak obviously as my QB1, and I think the main reason why I'm not as happy with their offense is because their defense doesn't suck. I thought that their defense was going to be absolutely terrible, but Micah Parsons is just a monster, and Trevon Diggs has obviously been great in the secondary. I'm a little concerned with the offense going forward. I feel like Amari Cooper might be touchdown dependent. CeeDee Lamb is the only guy getting true volume that you can count on week to week. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to get interesting, too, because it's like Zeke's banged up. Pollard's banged up. Zach Martin got hurt on Sunday, so it's like I don't know if he's going to be playing. So
Tyron Smith is already out for next
right.
season.
So it's like a big – I think to your point about them having a bad defense, that was like a big point. Like they're going to be a lot of shootout games. And I think that and the injuries have really gotten the best of them. I mean, you look at their lineup, like, I mean, most of the receivers have been out for some point. The running back room, I think Dak's been like kind of banged up as well. So it's like,
and he's not running at all.
No, he's not. And that has been such a key to like fantasy football success for QBs this year. I mean, look at guys like Jalen Hurts, Taysom Hill that haven't really been great at throwing the ball, but they're top options because they have that safe floor. And Dak pre-leg injury, like he was running all the time. Obviously, he shifted his play style a little bit. I mean, I get that, but we're not getting exactly what we thought from that. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not quick to jump off. I mean, I think that Dak is still like to me, like he's a 6 to 10 option every week.
They play the Giants this week, so at least we have that going for us.
Yeah, but like the Giants, like that's just like the divisional games. Like I get so worried about like data because it means like nothing. Like you think about like Ravens Steelers, like no matter what happened or what was going into that game, you knew it was going to be like a 1-point low scoring game, regardless of like what they were doing leading up to that point.
I feel that most weeks, but I don't feel that with the Cowboys playing Washington football team or the Giants. Like they just like the Giants are just so defeated. Like Joe Judge might be on the way out at the end of the season. You don't have Daniel Jones. They're just kind of showing up and just hoping to get out of there.
Yeah.
I saw he was seeing a neck specialist. If anybody wants to make a joke about that, feel free right there.
But yeah, I mean, the Giants, they've been like a very middling, like average matchup for quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers. I would say that if I'm thinking about the offense in totality, like I probably feel the most comfortable with people in this order: CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Dak, Pollard, Zeke.
Wow.
Well, Pollard has a torn plantar fascia. He might not play again.
But that's the thing. I feel
Ever?
way more comfortable like knowing like at least I know where I stand with him. It's like with Zeke, it's like I have no idea. Like I thought last week, it's like, all right, well, you're the bell cow now. Like, let's get to work. And like he's clearly banged up, like and playing through whatever. And it's like that's awesome from like a player standpoint, but for fantasy, like it's just not.
Yeah. So going into this week though, Amari Cooper, James Bradbury shadow. Thoughts? He might not be like. It's tough for me to feel confident starting him in a playoff matchup. I mean, you probably don't have better options than Amari Cooper because you think about the draft capital you put into him. But like,
I mean, especially with Elijah Moore being on IR now, I don't in Dynasty. Yeah, I mean, James Bradbury kind of flies under the radar, I feel like, but like that last year in Carolina and now 2 years in a row with the Giants, he's been really good. I feel pretty similarly to like how I feel about like having Chris Godwin in my top 5, but not having Mike Evans anywhere near my top 10 against the Saints because Marshawn Lattimore is going to shadow him, and Chris Godwin's probably going to have a field day.
Yeah.
I would say like I don't know who the next guy.
So, Amari Cooper.
So, I mean, CeeDee Lamb probably just eats.
Yeah, he's just going to eat and out of the slot.
Gallup too.
Yeah, and Gallup is really coming on the last couple weeks. But the thing with Cooper. Week 5, they played the Giants. He was 3 for 6, only 60 yards. He luckily had a touchdown to save his day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like,
yeah, I don't know. I mean, but it's like, would you rather play someone like Amari Cooper or would you rather play someone like Terry McLaurin? Like to me, like I feel like that's a very real, like that's a decision that I'm gonna have to make this week. And I would probably lean Cooper right now. Like McLaurin hasn't done anything in a few weeks.
Well, McLaurin's probably not gonna be playing.
Would you rather play Amari Cooper or a guy like Amon-Ra St. Brown who's getting like 10 targets?
I mean, I can't trust Detroit in the playoffs. Are you kidding me?
I'm fully expecting to start Amon-Ra St. Brown this week in our Dynasty League because he's getting the volume, dude. If he gets 6 catches.
This is why
I wish you the best. When Detroit finds out that it's the fantasy playoffs, as soon as they hear the word playoffs,
someone's got to catch the ball.
Hawkinson's back, right?
He should be.
I don't know, though. He's been dealing with that hand injury for a while. I don't even feel confident starting Hawkinson this week.
Khalif Raymond season.
Settle down.
I can't believe it's 2021, the end of 2021, and Rashad Penny's popping up on this list. Why?
I love this.
What a demon.
Yeah. Rashad Penny, like he's got to be the best option in the waiver wire this week. I'm a little concerned about his schedule going into the playoffs, but he has the Lions in championship week if you can get there. He was the main piece of my DFS lineup, by the way, when we get to that part. I just like him. I think he's been like 4 years now. He's been hurt this entire time. They want him.
He's been a first-round pick on him.
Yeah, they want him to be a thing. I wouldn't be shocked if he's getting 20-plus carries going forward.
What happens with Chris Carson next season? They just gave him a contract.
I mean,
this year
he has a serious neck injury.
True, but like I feel like Carson has been like hanging over Penny since like he's been drafted. It's like Penny's just kind of been waiting, and
he's been hurt the entire time though. He's
both. I mean, I feel like they both do it. Like one gets hurt and then the other one's great, and then we're like, wow, they're the next running back, and then the other one gets hurt Another one does great. And it's like, wow, they're the next running back. And then somehow it always goes back to Carson.
I
And
feel
Carson
like
is
Penny's
a
never
7th round
finished a
pick.
game. I feel like he's been hurt in every game he's played in, besides the last couple where he's.
I feel like
all
Penny's
out.
never played in a game.
Yeah, like how many times did he tear his ACL? Like 2 or 3 times?
No idea.
I'm
He should
surprised
play
he's
for
still.
the 49ers.
Do we know what school he came out of? I can't remember what college he came out of.
It was West Coast, San Diego State, right?
Oh,
Yeah, he
yep.
went to San Diego State. Yeah.
And
He was a
Carson
ball
was
kick returner.
TCU.
That one's missing me. I have no idea.
Let's see.
Not that it matters.
He went to. Well, they don't even list it. I guess he has beef with them. So he was at.
Probably says
He probably
He-
played at elementary school.
He went to Oklahoma State as a transfer from community college,
Huh.
but he doesn't even list it. Like he's one of those people like in like Monday Night Football that's like, oh, like Parkview High School.
nice. Okay. Moving on. What is the next topic here? Oh, here we go. Drew, I don't want to hear you talk about Melvin Gordon.
I'm not
at
gonna
all,
bitch. I'm not gonna
but-
bitch.
All right, go ahead.
I'll settle down. They have the best matchups going forward. There's a very real possibility that they're both getting 20 touches each week, just running the ball down people's throats. I think that they're both starters, and I hate it because obviously last week I wanted Javonte to be a thing. Like this dude
He was a thing.
he was a thing,
But even
he was-
more so,
but he was
imagine.
limited. He was a limited thing. Like if this dude was getting 30 carries, if he was getting 30 carries, we're looking at a guy who's probably averaging 30 points a week. But he's being hindered, and we'll take 20 points a week. I'm fine with that. I think that he's the perfect flex option going into the playoffs.
They both had 20 points last week. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I feel good about this because this was one of my bold predictions was that he would never overtake Gordon. And it's one of the few things that I was right about this year.
Yeah, I don't
Here we
want to
go.
hear it. I don't want to hear that. Smitty, send him that meme quick that you have on your phone. Put it
But
up on the screen quick
what's interesting is
Wait,
that
what meme are you talking about?
of that kid.
oh man, you just made the kid quit. That's tough. But I mean,
You had
after
a moment to
Williams-
do something right, and you did that. Like, come on.
even after Williams had the monster week, like they literally were down the middle on snaps. So I don't think that they're going to move away from this at any point. But Drew, to your point, they do have a great schedule. This week, actually, Cincinnati's been really strong against the run, so I'll maybe pump the brakes on that hype train for this week.
I'm still starting Javonte Williams though because he's the one that's getting most of the targets out of the backfield.
Yeah, I mean, most of them. I mean, it was 6% of the total targets for the game. But Melvin Gordon did not have a target last week.
Their wide receivers are doing nothing. $61 million doesn't get you what it used to. They just paid Cortland Sutton, and he's useless. He's not doing anything out there.
Yeah, it's pretty tough.
What about Judy, dude? We can't have this Jerry Judy slander.
So Tim Patrick is out snapping Jerry Judy right now.
Yeah, Vic Fangio is an idiot.
Say it louder for the people in the back.
Forget the Melvin Gordon, Javonte Williams thing. Let's talk about the receivers usage.
I hate it.
Yeah, I don't understand it. It was like Sutton.
Nothing against Tim Patrick.
No, Tim Patrick is a
He's
consummate
a good player.
professional,
Yeah.
but Jerry Judy is their best receiver, and he's third in snap percentage.
And why pay Cortland Sutton if you're just going to play Tim Pat? Why not just go forward with Tim Patrick and Jerry Judy? Let Cortland Sutton walk. And you got KJ
Patrick,
Hamler coming
too.
back next year. I
They
mean,
paid Patrick too. Are they going to let Judy
Yeah, I
walk
know.
this years?
no,
Maybe,
they're
I
going to
hope
pay
so.
him.
They're just getting ready for Aaron Rodgers, man.
Loading up. Okay, and then did I see this right? Am I reading this?
Yeah.
AJ Dillon more snaps than Aaron Jones?
Yeah. But people don't realize it because Aaron Jones is the one that got into the end zone. But
Twice.
AJ Dillon,
right?
more snaps and more carries. What do we think?
I don't know, man.
It's risky starting Jones because I feel like he's touchdown dependent.
No, that's fair. I think that I don't think Jones is fully recovered from whatever it is that It's been bugging him. But yeah, it was 55-45 last week. The one thing that I will say that's interesting though is that AJ Dillon didn't have any targets last week.
Yeah.
So if you're in standard, I would say I would lean Dillon. If you're in PPR formats, I think that I would still rank Jones ahead of him, but he's not going to be the league winner Aaron Jones that unless he breaks a couple. Like he just doesn't have the volume that he used to.
Would you say that this is the Browns backfield when Kareem Hunt's healthy?
No, I think the Browns backfield is better because they don't have a Devontae Adams
just
taking
usage.
all the red zone.
Just
usage? No, because you said that and I disagree.
Exactly. That's what I thought.
No, but like I think the biggest thing out of this is Aaron Jones owners being upset. Like that's really the only thing that it does, honestly, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I've had to play AJ Dillon as a starting running back since since Chuba Hubbard, Christian McCaffrey came back and Chuba Hubbard wasn't the starter, and then obviously Chuba Hubbard's like back in there, but you have like the presence of Amir Abdullah. Chuba Hubbard hasn't been that good, hasn't been efficient. I've been playing AJ Dillon over him since then.
I will say though, like the number of running back owners that probably aren't upset. Like I feel like everyone's kind of been like at this point, like Derrick Henry was off the wall, gets hurt. It's like CMC obviously had the injury stuff. Like a lot of the people that you got in the first or second round, like Eckler's
Alvin Kamara.
It's just Jonathan Taylor.
Jonathan Taylor's been a steal. I would say Najee, but even he's had his struggles in the last couple weeks. Saquon, I mean,
he's been like,
he's brutal. And Saquon better not be a top 2 or 3 round pick next year. The Giants The Giants are just terrible.
He won't go first round, but I could see him being a late second, early third, just for the potential alone.
Well,
like, people won't forget that. People will never forget that he was a number 1 running back in fantasy. It's just like Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey will still be a back end first round pick next year,
but
even though he's played 6 games in 2 years.
Drew contract year.
It's all.
You're
speaking my language now. We have to move on before you change my mind. One thing really quick though, I thought it was funny 2 nights ago when AJ Dillon got the Packers down to like the 1 yard line, and then they vultured him with Aaron Jones. Can you believe that Aaron Jones is the vulture in that scenario? I thought it was funny. I'll be the only one that laughed.
Yeah, I would say Jones scored 2 touchdowns Sunday night, right?
He had a receiving touchdown. And...
Okay, so Drew, you can start to talk about your DFS experience over the weekend while I pull up Joe's sheets.
Yeah, so I've been playing DFS for a few years now, but this year I took it to a next level, specifically because of Joe's spreadsheets. I've been using these things all year, and I've been coming in like the top 100, 50 to 100. I've been bringing in like $50 here, $75 here. This week, actually, man, Joe's chart was dead on because I put up 205 points with my lineup. And going into Sunday Night Football, I was in 8th place overall. Sunday night, I started Devontae Adams, and with like 2 minutes left in the game, he scored that second touchdown, which put me in the 1st place overall. And I spent basically all day yesterday trying to go through these. It was 2,941 lineups that I was playing against. And I was trying to figure out who the hell these other teams were playing. And it turned out that the first guy was like 10 points away from me. He had Sony Michel. I also had Sony Michel, so I was able to rule him out as someone that can catch me. I basically went into last night 1st place with like a 22-point lead overall when the first guy was Christian Kirk. I wasn't really too worried about him unless he took more than 1 touchdown over 50 yards. I was good there. Sony Michel, though, put up a dud on me. I was a little pissed off. He had 3 targets, didn't bring in any of them, only got about 70 yards. I think he pulled in like 7.3 points. With 4 minutes left in the game last night, I was still in 1st place with a substantial amount of money coming in. And this guy just comes out of nowhere with this Cooper Kupp and AJ Green lineup, and they just start getting targets.
Go ahead, say the word.
Cooper Kupp gets like a 50-yard bomb with 3 minutes left on like a 3rd and 10 play where I wish they would just incomplete end up punting. Cooper Kupp overtook me by 2.8 points overall. Sony Michel wasn't able to recover from there. So I lost last night to Cooper Kupp and AJ Green. Of course, AJ Green, the guy I've been saying has been good all year, decided to screw me in my last week as well. AJ Green added to my shit list. But came in second, which was pretty cool. I basically went completely off of Joe's charts, and anybody that you see in blue there, I went over and I was just like, who's the best possible option on that team? I can try to save some salary here and there. My big kickers where I went with Josh Palmer that we talked about last week as a potential play with Keenan Allen. Yeah, we were dead on with that. Keenan Allen out. Josh Palmer played the significant snaps and ran the significant routes that Keenan Allen had been running most of the year out of the slot. He had like 9 targets, I think, and he had like 7 receptions and a touchdown. So that was a big hitter for me. And then I took Rashad Penny because I just felt like this dude has been a first-round pick that was just a complete bust, and you expect something good to happen for him at some point. So I was like, screw it, I'm going to throw him in my lineup. He had like a 45-yard touchdown in the first quarter, and then he ended up racking up some more yards and another touchdown later on. And then with Devontae Adams, obviously he's a stud. You throw a couple studs in there. And then generally, if you want to make a good DFS lineup, you want to get one of the top tight ends because you're trying to hit a home run. You're not trying to just get a couple points and you hear a touchdown dependent guy. It's usually Travis Kelce or George Kittle. I actually got lucky because I didn't have enough salary for Kelce. So that's why I went with Kittle. And obviously for the second week in a row, he's the highest fantasy player overall. So you
want to know something crazy? Kelce is no longer tight end 1.
Yeah. And Kittle's missed. Is Kittle 1 or is Andrews? It's probably
Andrews. Andrews is.
Yeah. I mean, the Chiefs offense as a whole, I've been preaching this for weeks now, hasn't been the Chiefs offense. Their defenses are playing them differently. And it's just, unless the Chiefs make an adjustment, it's tough to trust any of these guys right now to be booms, but I can get off of there. With DFS though, the object to separate yourself from other teams is that you have to hit on a couple guys that most teams don't play. And that was Josh Palmer for me, Rashad Penny. Leonard Fournette was a guy that I was really high on. That was an easy play. And then, and then you take a running quarterback. Taysom Hill against the Jets was a no-brainer for me. He started off slow, but he had like a 45-yard touchdown late in the fourth quarter that gave me the amount of points I needed. And then on defense, you basically have to pick right with a team that's going to score a touchdown. I felt going into this week, I texted Smitty right before the game started. I was like, I just feel like the Browns are going to beat up on the Ravens this week. They didn't absolutely beat up on them, but they did score a touchdown on defense like I thought. So I threw them in there, and it was nice. So second place overall out of 2,941 DFS lineups using Joe Frick's chart.
With a cap tip to Joe Frick.
Yes.
Joe, would you like to talk about your sheets for the week?
All right. Yeah, man. So this is the first time been on the show. If you haven't really been paying attention or you fell asleep during Drew's story, this is a rolling 3-week average of fantasy football data, 4 weeks if you have a team that was on bye. And essentially what we're looking at is points against. So we're looking at the defensive side of the ball for the teams on the left. And then the team that they are playing this week, which are the guys in your fantasy football lineups, are going to be on the right. So the teams that have a blue, the darker the blue, the better the matchup they are for your players. Teams that are in red are going to be a worse matchup. So somebody that Drew had just mentioned, Taysom Hill, actually has the best matchup for all QBs this week against Tampa Bay.
Definitely going to DFS lineup, 100%.
So love to see it. And then you can see as you move forward along with that. So if we're going through the different categories, Pittsburgh's still number 1 against running backs. So you could look at someone like Donta Foreman this week in DFS. If you're looking at like receiver, you can look at Marquise Brown, who cracked my top 10 because of these sheets. Or Darnell Mooney has a really good matchup against Minnesota. They've been getting lit up a lot lately. So to the moon for me we go. And then in the tight end spot, if Tyler Higbee does find a way on the field, I don't really like Higbee and his utilization in the offense. But somebody who is a comparable amount who does see the red zone targets is Zach Ertz. I think Zach Ertz has a big week. I truthfully wouldn't utilize the defensive information too much just because it's so dependent on like the other teams that they're playing. But you can see offenses that are struggling with these charts. So you can see Baltimore's had a tough go of it. Cincinnati's had a lot of turnovers lately, and the same for Vegas. This is stuff that's been getting updated pretty much every week. We talked about a little bit earlier in the show with Green Bay. So 4 weeks ago, Green Bay was the third from the bottom in this list, and now they're the second from the top. So these teams, their information is constantly shifting. I think something to look out for in particular is, like, say, for example, Philadelphia. A lot of people, including myself, had slated like Jalen Hurts as like a bona fide number 1 QB going into the fantasy playoffs because of the matchups. But when we look at this week, he has a bottom 5 or bottom 10 matchup against Washington. So that doesn't mean that you don't play your studs, but that does mean that when you're constructing your lineup, you need to be smart and just expect that, like, all right, relative to the average, these teams are a negative matchup. So it's just different things to think about. But yeah, we're excited. It's crunch time, and if you're in the playoffs or if you're in DFS, hope this stuff is useful. So let's win some cash.
DFS, we now know is useful. We had a test dummy go out into the trenches and test it for us, and he came back a rich man.
I'm doing a lineup really quick, just looking at the chart, just to give someone an example.
Okay.
I just have to get a couple more pieces here.
Well, while you're talking about that, the last thing that I want to bring up that's not related to fantasy football, I mentioned it kind of at the beginning of the show, why Drew and Joe are dressed the way that they are completely, and why I have this hat on. I felt like I had to put something on. I was going to dress like this, but 2 days from now is the end of Rocking Around the 412 2021. We've raised $9,200 as we sit here right now for the mission. It is still going for 48 more hours. Probably Saturday we'll do a little live show to do all the prizes, which we've actually had a couple late additions, and I'll announce that stuff on Twitter. But our pinned tweet on our Twitter at Around the 412 will take you right to the GoFundMe where you can read the entire mission. I feel like I just ramble on about this stuff, but essentially Tyler, I, and Herb, when he was part of the show back in 2017, 2018 was when we started the mission, but we wanted a way to give back in the 412 and 724 areas. The first year that we did it, we raised $1,500, and we actually weren't doing exactly the same mission. We donated it to a 24/7 pediatric care center in Aliquippa. Year 2 of it, we actually had somebody reach out to us, and they were like, "Hey, I know these people that like could really use some help at Christmas." So we were like, "Oh, that's really cool. Like, that's a way for us to actually know where the money's going." More so, essentially, like to give back in that type of way. Like, obviously given to like St. Jude Children's Hospital, those are great things too, but like when you can literally see how it's impacting people this way, like these smaller things, it just hits a little bit closer to home. So that started the second year that we did the mission. Ever since then, it's grown to the point where, like I said, we've gone from $1,500 to $9,200 in a couple years raised. We're closing in on $20,000 total raised within the 4 years as well. And every single penny that's donated goes to providing Christmas in its entirety for children in the area. And then also, after we buy all the gifts for the children, we also get a $100 gift card for Walmart, Giant Eagle, whatever their local grocery store is, for them to be able to go and buy groceries to provide the holiday meal. So like I said, this is year 4 of doing this. We've raised close to $20,000 within those 4 years, which is absolutely unbelievable. And that's all thanks to you guys for helping out. Obviously, but shout out to Drew and Joe for their involvement as well. I can't thank you guys enough for your participation, your, supporting it, getting the word out there, everything that you guys have done, along with obviously donating yourselves. So thank you so much.
Hey man, we're just happy to know you.
I'm not, but hey, this is cool.
This is serious. So I threw together a DFS lineup. I actually feel pretty good about it, and I can kind of go through what my thought process was while I did this. So right off the bat, Taysom Hill, we covered that. That was an easy one. Tampa Bay is obviously going to put up points. Taysom Hill is going to have to throw the ball around. He's going to run the ball, and he's going to score. I mean, even if he throws 4 picks, I wouldn't be shocked if he's at least 25.
He's done that before.
Yep.
Like 2 weeks ago before.
Threw Nick Chubb in there. Obviously, he had the best matchup on paper, right? Besides Steelers, right up there. I threw Nick Chubb in my lineup for my RB1. With my RB2, I wanted to save a little bit of salary cap here. So I actually went with Dontrell Hilliard because he's about $1,200 less on the cap than Deontay Foreman. And I feel like Devin Bush isn't going to be able to cover him coming out of the backfield. I wouldn't be shocked if he gets a bunch of targets and he can rack up some more points there. Against Green Bay, Joe already talked about that the wide receiver matchups are good. I think a lot of people are going to go after Hollywood Brown. So the best way to stack yourself up against other people is to get the guy that not everybody's thinking about. And he's also the hottest one, in my opinion, as of late, and that's Rashad Bateman. So I threw Rashad Bateman in there with only a 5,000 salary cap. And then for my last wide receiver spot, or second to last wide receiver spot, I threw Justin Jefferson. Like with Adam Thielen out, he's just going to pepper with targets all week. I don't care who the matchup is. He's a must start in fantasy football. And then we already mentioned the matchup with Minnesota with Darnell Mooney. He's only 5,500, so I was able to throw him in at my wide receiver 3. And then for my flex spot, I used Russell Gage against San Francisco. I think the matchup was middle of the pack, but because there's basically no one else in that offense that's getting targets, I feel comfortable with throwing him in there. Maybe if he gets a long touchdown, that'll be a huge boom.
San Francisco's number 3, actually. That's a really sneaky pick because Gage is the de facto number 1 wide receiver. But the benefit that you get from Gage is that the coverage is built around Pitts. So Gage gets a lot of good looks because of that. So I like that a lot.
Yeah. And then the last 2 spots, the defense is essentially a dart throw. I actually went with Houston because I decided to up pay in my other positions, and they're playing Jacksonville, who just looks defeated, and they look like they just don't give a crap to even be on the field. So they've kind of been a scrappy defense. I wouldn't be shocked if Houston actually comes out and buries Jacksonville this week because they just don't care. And if they could score a touchdown, obviously that's all you need. And then my final spot, I was really struggling with my tight end spot when I was going through this pretty quickly, but the matchup and the fact that it's going to be a revenge week for this man, I went with Gerald Everett of Seattle against the Rams. I expect him to score a touchdown this week in his revenge matchup.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's wild. Yeah, I don't know enough. I've never played DFS because Texas is not a betting state, but it sounds good.
I like it. I am
also
not sure in the Gerald Everett pick, but hey.
This just broke, so everybody's aware. Austin Eckler and Mike Williams were limited participants in practice today. So bodes well for Eckler playing this week.
Yeah, in my opinion, that's a huge W. This early in the week for him to be limited. They must not be concerned. I expect he probably have him this week then. Unless he has a setback from today's practice.
You know who would really be a sneaky play that's probably dirt cheap if you were – I don't know how if the lineups lock or if the values change, but if James Conner isn't able to go and they bring Edmonds back, Arizona actually has a really good matchup this week. And when they only have one running back in, I mean, it's going to be a bell cow kind of thing. So
Yep. So I feel like I don't trust Cliff Kingsbury at all, especially because he essentially played us with Murray and Hopkins for the however long they were out. They kept saying, "Oh, we think he could be back this week." It never even looked like they considered playing either of them. They're only worried about the playoffs. So if Connor misses, I wouldn't be shocked if Eno Benjamin's the guy that you want.
I don't know, man. I mean, Connor has put up 25 points every game that Edmonds has been out, and Benjamin hasn't really done anything with it.
But my thing is, if they're both hurt, and I don't think they want to risk either player. I could see.
I get what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if one of them plays, obviously you know where to go. But I wouldn't be shocked if both of them could be out just because they're not rushing them. They're built for the playoffs. They're keeping guys out if they're worried about them in any way.
All right. Anything else?
That's all we got.
All good.
Good stuff. Good
luck in the playoffs.
Good luck in the playoffs. Yeah. So, real quick to this chart. Obviously, I say this every week, but this is PPR, half point PPR, standard. Boom. Great stuff. From Joe, as always. Other than that, best of luck this week in the playoffs. Hey, Joe, how many leagues did you make the playoffs in out of those 12?
Let me see. You know what my worst team was? The one that you guys drafted.
I want to see proof. It's probably in the top spot.
No, it went 3-11. It was awful.
God.
I mean, I had Waller, and then I had Calvin Ridley, and then I had Allen Robinson, I think. So it was just death by 1,000.
At the time, they were good picks.
No, at the time it was fine. Let's see.
You
Trust
want
the
to talk about
process.
Dynasty while he's looking?
What about Dynasty?
2/3 of the Around the 412 Fantasy Football show is in the playoffs.
2/3 isn't good enough. That's a D.
I'm in the playoffs in 5, and there's 3 leagues that because I lost last week, I did not make the cut, including the Dynasty League that we're in because my team is falling apart quicker than my webcam.
Your ratio is very good.
No,
True.
I had a tough year. I need to look into why that is. A lot of it is injury stuff, but I don't think I pivoted off of players. I held on to people for too long. Like Calvin Ridley, that league that you guys drafted for was a 4-bench spot, and it's like I should have just cut loose on that like pretty early or traded or did something. But I was like, oh, like Robinson, Ridley, all these guys, like it'll come with time, and then I'll hit it on the back half of the year, and it just never picked up steam.
You had a lot of Waller. You had a lot of Waller this year.
Yeah.
On a lot of your teams, and it looks so good in week 1, and then just
yeah. I also play in a lot of auction leagues, and I'm very much like a stars and scrubs player. And that as soon as players get hurt, you have no one on your bench, and it's kind of like, all right, like you're done for. So that's all right. You live and you learn. But yeah, we'll just win the leagues that I'm in the playoffs for and make some cash, and we'll be fun.
How many leagues are you in the playoffs for?
Well, do the math. I have 5.
Well, I was talking about Smitty.
Oh, Smitty.
Not everything's about you.
Oh, 4. I'm in 4 leagues and made the playoffs in 4.
Oh, great. Never mind. I shouldn't have asked you shit.
For anybody that's not in the playoffs,
That was about you this time. That was for you this time.
That's self ratio.
No, I'm in the playoffs.
No, I'm talking about him.
Yeah. For anybody that's not in the playoffs,
If anybody cares, I was in the playoffs for 3 out of my 4 leagues.
They don't.
All right, so clearly I'm the weak league on the show.
The league I didn't make it in, I had Ridley and Waller, just like you.
We need somebody else making the charts going forward.
No, but
he's too busy doing all the work while we that's the problem.
This is what happens when you trust the nerds of football, right?
Analytics. Best luck to everybody in their playoff games. Come back this exact spot next week to recap those playoff matchups. See how many leagues that Joe got eliminated in. And then we can go from there. But other than that, thanks for tuning into another episode of the Around the 412 Fantasy Football Show. Be sure to donate and or share the GoFundMe if you can. Please do what you can. I know it's tough times for everybody out there. But we will see you guys next week. Best of luck for Smitty, for the Grinch, for Joe the Elf. We'll talk to you then. Bye-bye.